We gather today on a sad occasion, and yet I'm going to invite Cantor Barnoy to open with the singing of Shalom Aleichem. Why? Because that's what Florence wanted. Like so many things, she had a hand in organizing this sad day. And the first, usually Shalom Aleichem is something we sing, it's joyous, it's Friday night, it's all about those things. And then I realized that probably not only she wanted it because it was so many happy and wonderful associations for her. The song is about angels who accompany us on our way. And as she now begins this next stage in her journey, we too pray that these angels will accompany her.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Borechoni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At this time, I will also continue with the 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar, binot eshe yarbitzeini, al mei menochot yanaleini. Nafshi yeshovei, nafshi yeshovei, Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begei tzalmavet lo yirara, ki ata imadi, shivetecha umishanetecha, shivtecha umishanetecha, Hema yenachamoni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged tzorerai, dishaneta בשמן ראשי, דשנתה בשמן ראשי, דשנתה בשמן ראשי, כוס רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני ליורך ימים.
Psalm 121. Shir lamalot esainai harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri mehim Adonai, oseh shamayim v'haaretz. Hayitein lamod raglecha, hayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilecha, al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. Song of Ascent. I lift up my eyes to the hills. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of the heavens and the earth. God will not allow you to stumble. Your guardian will not slumber. Indeed, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, your shelter at your side. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you against all evil. God will guard you, body and soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming home, now and forever.
Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Creator of heaven, earth, man and woman, be gracious to your children who now mourn. May the light of your presence dispel the gloom of absence so keenly felt on this sad day. Bless them with your compassion, empower them with your love, touch them with the fullness of your heart that they may be granted inner peace. El Shaddai, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to your children who now grieve. Overcome by the pain of loss, they need your help to focus on the triumph and on the joy in Florence Meyer's life. Help them to meet grief with courage, to face sorrow undaunted. Help them to treasure what is now theirs because Florence lived. Should despair threaten or faith falter, sustain us all, Adonai, for you are our refuge and our strength, our ever-present help in troubled times. And let us say, we've gathered here today to mourn the loss of Florence Meyer. Our hearts are heavy as we contemplate a world without her. For Sharon and Steve, Jeffrey and Ronnie, Lynn and Gary, Amy and Robert, it means a world without your mother and your mother-in-law. For Michael, Alyssa, Alexandra, Zachary, Max, Corey, Emily, Hillary, Harrison and Ilana. It means a world without your grandmother. For so many of us, it means a world without a wonderful and dear friend. But for all of us, it means contemplating a lesser world, a sadder world. The world was a better place because Florence was in it. You know, I had this image of the last day or so of people leaving their homes, sensing that something was amiss. But since most of the people in the world didn't know Florence, they weren't sure why. I had this sense of people wondering why the world was a bit darker, not quite understanding what has changed. But we who knew Florence, we who knew that she had died, we understood. Yes, the world will go on without her, but it will not go on as well. Yes, life will continue, but something unique and special and wonderful, something truly irreplaceable has been lost. And I find that very sad. Florence knew that she was dying. When she was told that the melanoma had spread to her lungs and was incurable, Florence took control of her dying as she had exerted her control over every other aspect of her long and wonderful life. First, she didn't want those outside her family to know. She did not want our pity or our concern. She refused to give up her dignity. When she required oxygen these last couple of weeks, she decided she would no longer go out in public. She would rather not be seen in a diminished capacity. So she spent these last few weeks in the bosom and love of her nearest and dearest, you. She sat outside and she enjoyed the warmth of the sun. She listened to her beloved music. And to the credit of her loving children and grandchildren, they cared for her as she so lovingly cared for them all their lives. During these last few weeks, Florence was never alone. She was surrounded by the love and care of those she loved the most. And she instructed her family not to be sad and not to be upset. I led a good life, a long life, she told them. There is nothing to be sorry about. No regrets. As her death grew closer, she even instructed the family not to hold the funeral on Mother's Day, a classic final flourish by this selfless mother, who did not want to impose any sadness on other people's day. You know, there's this legend I love that tells of how God instructed an angel and tasked him with going to earth to bring back three things that could be found on earth that were worthy of a place in heaven. And the angel took this task very seriously, but found the challenge much harder than he had expected. After considerable effort, he finally spotted a rose in bloom in a garden. Thinking it divinely beautiful, he took it with him. He next passed a house where, looking in the window, he saw an infant sleeping in a crib. Struck by the infant's placid, peaceful smile, he thought that it worthy of a place in heaven. He then flew back and forth over the earth, wondering what the third thing should be. And suddenly he saw a mother devotedly going about her work, and he took that mother's love to heaven. Now back in heaven, the angel proudly presented his findings before the throne of the Holy One, blessed be he. But he was embarrassed to discover that in the interim, the rose had withered, losing its beauty. The child had awakened from its sleep. He was crying and no longer peaceful and placid at all. The legend ends by saying that the only thing that remained in heaven as it was on earth was the love of the mother. Yes, something beautiful and precious has been lost. Something from our lives and something from our world. a mother's love, this mother's love. And today we gather to comfort each other as we contemplate a world without her love. Now, one of the ways we will try and comfort ourselves is to share our memories. We will tell our tales of our time with Florence, and in so doing we will find comfort, and hopefully some small comfort, in the fact that while we have lost much, we have not lost everything. That her inspiration, her memory, her legacy remains with us. So this morning I am going to call first on her family. I'll call on her son Jeffrey, cousin Sheila. I'm then going to call on Rabbi Jackness of the South Huntington Jewish Center, who, in addition to growing up with Florence kids, is also the rabbi to Sharon and to Jeffrey and to Lynn and their families. And then I will hopefully add a few more words on behalf of this wonderful congregation and myself. And then hopefully by putting them together, we will maybe begin to pay tribute to the life of this very special woman, a life that has now come to its close. Jeffrey?
In the memorialized words of my departed uncle, Rabbi Herbert Tarr, my grandmother was a woman of spirit. Our mother, on the other hand, was a woman of values. Her values frequently focused on her love of Judaism, the overwhelming importance of Israel, and the value of lifelong Jewish learning. The Herbert Tarr Institute was the incarnation of those values, and for 20 years, a tribute to her prematurely departed brother, a source of Jewish pride and her salvation. Her values didn't stop at Judaism's doorstep. My earliest memories of childhood recall my mother jumping into her Vista Cruiser station wagon, speeding off to Brooklyn to take care of my grandfather who had cancer, then my grandmother with heart disease. She spent her adult life making herself available to anyone and everyone who needed a kind word, a listening ear, a bissel to nosh, a place to live, or frequently a ride. Many of you here know from whence I speak. My sister Amy and brother-in-law Rob, when they fell on hard times as their house was being rebuilt in Old Westbury, lived with Mom for over 2 years. Truly a Jewish saint. My sister Lynn and brother-in-law Gary lived with my mother for more than 1 year. They came with 2 children and left with 3. As a child and as an adult, you remember the example set and the values imparted by actions more than words. Rofeh Cholim was coded in her DNA. Mom, however, sometimes acted like healing didn't apply to her. None of us will ever forget gallons of Breyer's ice cream in the freezer. It was on sale. Carvel ice cream flying saucers, only by the dozen. They were cheaper that way. And Sara Lee pound cakes, sliced and eaten frozen. Why wait? She learned only late in life that frozen chocolate eclairs were meant to be thawed. Giant Hershey chocolate bars, soft pretzels at EJ Corvettes, and chocolate turtles, frequently hidden in the linen closet, were formative events in our lives. Jewish holidays at Mom's house were always an event. Passover, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It was where we caught up with each other. Sheila, Joyce, Peter, Keith, Shelley, baby Zoe, Michelle and Eric, Jacqueline and Ian, Nadie and Judy, Lonnie and Harriet, Jerry and Sandy, Jerry and Jimmy, Joe and Shirley Wershba, to name but a few. No one present will ever forget one particular Passover meal where after the Birkat HaMazon, my mother was heard literally guffawing in the kitchen with laughter. In her haste to serve everyone their matzo balls, she served matzo balls with matzo ball water. Everyone politely salted and peppered their water, while a full pot of chicken soup remained in the kitchen. A classic, indelible moment in Meyer holiday cuisine. She raised 4 fully functional children who learn to treat others as they wish to be treated, who understand the meaning of hard work and the necessity of education. Education was paramount, and she and our father put 4 children through college and graduate school. No one ever taught the value of a dollar better or was a better shopper than our mother. She shopped for price, but value in the form of quality was paramount. She was an educated consumer, and Sims for many years was her shopping nirvana. Mom was proud of all of her children. She had 6, not 3, wonderful daughters, as she told me before she died, including Ronnie, Sheila, and Joyce. Of her sons-in-laws, she thought the same. She was also proud of herself for having survived my childhood. During one especially trying weekend, Mom spent untold energy preventing me from going to see the then violent for the time movie, Bonnie and Clyde. Much crying and screaming ensued on both our parts, but Mom's values prevailed. Flash forward 45 years. I am an orthopedic surgeon, and Mom is in my office complaining of knee pain. As I knelt at her knee, preparing to give her an injection, I looked into her eyes, smiled malevolently, and said, "This is for Bonnie and Clyde." She laughed so hard I thought she was seizing. I'm fairly certain she's still laughing. Mom was a great grandmother to her 10 grandchildren. In an era where maintaining a Jewish identity in an increasingly secular world is fraught with difficulty, Mom, in her subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways, instilled a spark that burns in my sisters and my children. They know who they are, the importance of Israel, and their obligations to the Jewish people, in no small part due to Mom's efforts. Bar mitzvah trips to Israel were an enduring part of her legacy. Mom should be publicly recognized for something she did 26 years ago that ran afoul of everything she had been taught as a young Jewish adult. 26 years ago, she welcomed Ronnie into our family. It wasn't an easy acceptance. Converts to Judaism weren't accepted warmly at that time. To my mother's credit, as well as Ronnie's, a bond developed with mutual respect and love that benefited my mother, Ronnie, me, our children, and our whole family. Her example should be a beacon to all those families, increasingly more prevalent, who struggle with intermarriage. She made it work, imparting her values, but learning new ones along the way. Mom led an exemplary life. She never wanted to be a burden to herself or others, and never was. She spent her last days at home, surrounded by her ministering angel daughters, grandchildren, family, and friends. She'll be missed mightily, but her values will go on.
I'd like to call on Cousin Sheila.
Imagine having to follow Rabbi Lucas and Jeffrey's eulogy for Florence. First off, Jeffrey, you're my toughest competition in the family in reference to writing, and then Jerry Rubenfeld. Rabbi, thank you for your beautiful words and feelings expressed this afternoon. They have captured the true essence of Florence and all of her many contributions, and you have helped myself, my sister, and all of the family to ease our pain. To the Schwartz, Meyer, Spivak, and Kane families, my speech is too long to name all of them, but we all mourn with you and admire the devotion, the love, the respect, and dedication that you just showered onto Florence. Your care and devotion to her was a mitzvah. Clearly, it was quite well deserved. For those here who do not know me, I am Sheila Cummins, Florence's cousin, but actually that is not really an accurate statement. I was really considered a daughter along with my sister Joyce. Florence quasi-adopted us after our parents died, and she acted always as a second mother to us, as we grew up only 3 miles apart. Both Florence and Ernie, her husband, included us in so much. Florence was easy to love. Quote, "Easy for you to say she wasn't your mother," echoed the Meyer kids when we were younger. But Florence was cool. I got to read excerpts of Lolita in her den when I babysat for Amy when she was an infant. It was only as I grew older and matured that I understood she was not only the cool cousin, but I grew to appreciate the substance, the wisdom, the knowledge, and the spirit of this very remarkable woman. And I am honored that I was asked to speak today in her memory. We are all blessed to have known her. It is such a testament to Florence's life to see all of you here to help celebrate her life. Others will share the specifics of her accomplishments within the Jewish community and Temple Beth Shalom and the many organizations that she had worked for. And I think you will see very much in my speech, as you heard in Jeffrey's and in Rabbi Lucas to start, many of the themes that I will touch on now have been echoed just a few minutes ago. As sad as we all are today, my objective is to help frame Florence's very long and prolific life and to put it into perspective and to share the impact that she has had on so many. To know Florence was to adore her. Florence was among the most respected members of our family. I always sought her counsel and approval. We all got too greedy, didn't we? We all wanted one more day, one more holiday, and one more occasion to celebrate together. We all did not want to let Florence go. But Florence knew better, that it was her time. And in the last weeks, to see her vibrancy and independence stripped away and her distaste given her dependency on others killed her spirit slowly, as she did not want to be in this position. This was not a life Florence wanted to live. She denied people, as the rabbi had mentioned, from visiting so no one would see her in that way. But she did allow a caretaker in the last 2 weeks to ease the burden of care. And I don't know if she is here, if Joy is here, but I need to mention the family's appreciation for Joy and her daughter, who showed so much intensity in her warmth, her sensitivity, and concern for Florence during this interim period to give the family some peace and ease. Lynn, Jeffrey, and I discussed how Florence orchestrated her last days. She took inventory of everyone's itinerary over the last week. She was considerate of Corey's oral surgery, Max's lacrosse game. And when she realized, as the rabbi had said, that Mother's Day was Sunday, not wanting to ruin the day as a memory going forward, Florence willed that Friday be her final day. She had closure and was content that she had attended to every detail. She was content to depart. Florence was allowed to have all the pride and dignity warranted and to stay within the comfort of her home with all of her loving family surrounding her up until the end. What a gift. I mention all 8 children now as all decisions they have made during Florence's illness were made collectively, cohesively, and always as a team. Let me give you some numbers. 88. Florence was 88 years old in November. Who would have ever thought that to look at her? 7. 7 is the number of total nights that she had ever spent in the hospital in her entire life, excluding childbirth for 4 children. So let's say in those days, no, I'm not going to calculate it. Yes, you heard me correctly. And only 1 night of those 7 nights in the hospital were from this horrible, debilitating disease. The remaining 6 were spent for her hip and knee replacement. Who here in this sanctuary would sign up for that deal? 21. For Shabbat and holiday dinners, there were 21 people in just her immediate family. The 4 kids, plus spouses, and all spouses were considered her children. Ronnie, her daughter, Stephen, Gary, and Rob were her sons. 10 grandchildren, and that was before she invited Joyce, Peter, Keith, Michelle, Shelley, and Eric, plus my family, Jacqueline, Ian, and Adam, an incremental 10. As Sharon said during the weekend, quote, "Can you imagine the mountains of dishes and food preparation to feed this army?" Florence, always wanting to bring everyone together, to be involved in their lives, really involved, prepared the most delicious gourmet kosher meals you can ever imagine. It will take us all time to fill the void left now by her absence during the holidays. As we know, they will never really be the same for us. As Florence made them so warm, so inclusive, so special. Her effervescent love of the Jewish holidays and Jewish traditions is embedded in all of us. I asked Sharon to bring some leaves from the holly bush from Florence's garden that Florence would traditionally pick to place in her centerpiece for Shabbat and for all the holidays. There are some of these things that we will always remember about Florence. As you all know, Florence passed away in the early hours on Friday morning, and as appropriate and following Florence's model, all of the children shared Shabbat together 3 days ago, last Friday evening after her passing, as they would have done if Florence were still alive. As Amy said, Amy, where are you? Quote, "Mom would have been so proud to see her whole family having a Shabbat dinner together, carrying on the tradition." End of quote. Knowing that Florence is at peace and having been surrounded by her children helps us accept her passing. Her children showed her continual love and respect every day, not just in the final months, as the rabbi and Jeffrey had spoken. It is important for everyone to know that even with this large family, Florence had no favorites. She was completely neutral. She loved everyone the same, with a huge heart, unwavering love, and giving time to each of us individually and collectively. She showed only a commitment to being part of everyone's lives, to truly be involved and focused on their academic, social, and mental development and well-being. For her 10 grandchildren, she attended every school function, every recital, every sporting event, every concert, and yet she still had more time left over for others. She did for everyone she cared about and had boundless energy, drive, and enthusiasm to be involved with their lives. One wonders, how could one woman do so much for so many? Interestingly enough, Florence wanted nothing in return. Ronnie told me Friday, through tears and sorrow, how much she had learned from Florence and how much Florence had learned from her. The common thread that was articulated from all the children was that Florence felt strongly that their lives should go on and that they needed to continue to live. Quote, "Do not cry for me. I do not want to see any tears," unquote. "I have lived a full life. I have completed all I was placed here to do." Florence not only taught us how to live, but she taught us how to die with courage and dignity. And for all the goodness in her life, Florence was repaid. She died peacefully in her sleep with a smile on her face after singing and humming many Jewish songs that Sharon and the children had played for her from YouTube. Florence was an exemplary role model. Our Rubenfeld family had seen how Florence attended to her mother and father, my Aunt Annie and Uncle Izzy, to her husband Ernie and her adored brother Heshe. Nothing was ever too hard for Florence. No place was ever too far for her to travel to help. But Florence also knew how to enjoy life. No was just not in her vocabulary. On a minute's notice, if I asked her to come to a Broadway show at 4 p.m. that day, she said, quote, I guess I can be there. Many probably did not know that Florence also had a very adventurous streak. As a young child, Florence took us all to Jones Beach often, and many times we were caught swimming out too far in waves, only to be waved in by the lifeguard. But Florence still swam out further in modest defiance. Her grit and strength, her Energizer Bunny high speed, allowed her to do more in a day than 10 people put together. I have always tried to live this part of my life and do for others in her way. Because of Florence's spirit and love of life, I was lucky enough to share so many amazing moments with her. When recovering from surgery, Florence would sit with me, or she would sit with Peter or Joyce after their illnesses and surgery. When we were recuperating, she would feed us. She would surprise us with daily visits when we told her, you don't have to come tomorrow. She would take us to physical therapy at Jeffries and go for walks on Long Beach Boardwalk. I know that we were not alone in receiving this kind of devotion from her, and that there are probably dozens, actually hundreds or thousands of others that she cared for as well during the span of her life. I realize both then and now that this was the most precious time I had had with her. We could talk on a variety of subjects, but she always came back to how proud she was of her family, her children, her grandchildren, and the intense involvement that she was blessed to have had to be part of their lives. Florence also taught us how to lead. In this temple, Florence always sat in a specific seat in the back section. My cousin Stuart is right there. Could you raise your hand? Good. As a revered member of the community, she would have always been welcome to sit in the front of the sanctuary, but she chose rather to sit in the back, as was her nature. She never wanted to be out front, to hold official positions at the temple, in sisterhood or Hadassah. She did not need to be the director, but rather preferred to do her work quietly, effectively, behind the scenes, in less visible ways. Despite her intention, Florence was a leader and was dramatically influential despite her more subtle approach. And like their mother today, Lynn and Sharon are on multiple boards at their temple in South Huntington, as well as active board members of their sisterhood. We must know moving forward that Florence is still with us and will always be with us in our hearts. To the grandchildren, Florence will always be watching over you and protect you. You must believe that. Learn from Florence's life. That is my message. In closing, and there is a closing, it is only fitting and appropriate to quote and read from the final passage, a letter written by the main protagonist to her children as a farewell prior to her death, within the novel A Woman of Spirit, which was Florence's brother, Rabbi Herbert Tarr's last novel. These words will vividly reveal the ideals, morals, code of ethic, and spirit that Florence lived by. And I quote, "A person does not know how deeply she loves till faced by separation. Happily, though, I am not just going away. I am also going forward. So please, children, don't grieve. You know me now. Wherever I go, I always enjoy myself. Know I have gone in perfect peace. I do not believe death is the end. Know one thing, I have no intention of ever leaving you. I'll always be with you, as long as that is your wish. A person never dies whose values remain, whose work is continued. So please serve God with joy and treat people, all people, with chesed and a smile. Know what counts in the end is not the successes of life or the failures, not the fortune or the fame. What counts then, as ever, is the loving kindness we have extended to others day by day. I've always had my own standards set down in the Torah and all my life. I've tried to live up to them. That's kept me happy, knowing I was doing the right thing, however difficult. All the good luck, my dearest ones. I love you all so much. Pass it on. Signed, Mother."
Sheila. And I'd like to call now on Rabbi Ian Jackness, the rabbi of the South Huntington Jewish Center.
I'll be very brief. First, I just want to thank Rabbi Lucas and the family for inviting me to participate this afternoon in honoring and memory of Florence Meyer, Grandma Flory, as so many of my people at the South Huntington Jewish Center know her, and we loved her so much. For those of you who may not be aware, although Rabbi Lucas mentioned it, but Grandma Flory is the mother and grandmother of 3 of my synagogue families, the Schwartz, Meyer, and Spivak families. So we have certainly shared quite a number of simchas together over the years. Class services, special events, graduations in our nursery school and religious school, and quite a number of bar and bat mitzvahs and other special occasions. Grandma Flory always took such great pride in her children and grandchildren, and they were everything to her. She surely loved her family so very, very much. In fact, Florence has become such a regular at our synagogue over the years that I've often wondered if she ever got to go to shul at her own synagogue, Temple Beth Shalom, here in Roslyn Heights. And Grandma Flory was not just a spectator when she came to our synagogue. Whenever Grandma Flory came to a simcha at our synagogue, especially for the bar and bat mitzvahs of her grandchildren, she always volunteered, or was volunteered, to read Torah. And after all, Grandma Flory was certainly the matriarch of this family, and everyone followed her lead. I also want to add that I've had the pleasure and the privilege of knowing Florence Meyer since the old days when I myself grew up here at Temple Beth Shalom. Florence was a person you couldn't help but take notice of because she was always so very active, so very involved in the community. A true leader, a woman who loved the synagogue and the Jewish tradition, and just such a kind, caring, and loving person. She had such a special spirit. I had the honor of participating in the funeral for Florence's husband, Ernest, and the unveiling, I believe, Zichrono Livracha, a number of years ago. And also the privilege of knowing her brother, Rabbi Herbert Tarr, Uncle Heshi. May his memory also be for a blessing, who Florence loved so much and was always so very, very proud of. Let me just conclude with a brief teaching from our tradition. Rabbi Nachman once asked Rabbi Isaac to bless him as they were saying goodbye. And Rabbi Isaac replied, "Let me give you a parable. A man traveled a long way in the desert. He felt hungry, weary, and thirsty, when suddenly he came upon a tree filled with sweet fruits, covered with branches that provided delightful shade, and watered by a brook that flowed nearby. The man rested in the tree's shade, ate of its fruits, and drank its water. When he was about to leave, he turned to the tree and said, 'O tree, beautiful tree, with what shall I bless you? Shall I wish that your shade be pleasant? It is already pleasant. Shall I say that your fruits should be sweet? They are sweet. Shall I say that a brook flow by you? A brook does flow by you. Therefore I will bless you this way. May it be God's will that all the shoots taken from you be just like you.' So it is with you," Rabbi Isaac said to Rabbi Nachman. "What can I wish you? Shall I wish you learning? You have learning. Wealth? You have wealth. Children? You have children. Therefore I say, may it be God's will that all your offspring be like you." My friends, as one who knows the offspring of Florence Meyer fairly well, let me say that in addition to all the special qualities she had, her special midot, her values, Jewish values, and she surely had so many special qualities, she was blessed with children and grandchildren who clearly follow in her footsteps and embody so many of her wonderful, wonderful qualities in their own lives. Surely her greatest legacy. May the memory of Florence Meyer, Tzipora Bat Yirmiyahu Vechanadina, Grandma Flori, always be for a blessing in this world. Tehei Nishmata Tzura B'Tzror HaChayim, may her soul ever be bound up in the bond of life.
Thank you, Rabbi Jackness, Jeffrey, Sheila. We say in our tradition, Devarim Hayotzim Min Halev, that words that come from the heart, Nichnasim El Halev, enter into the heart. And now I beg your indulgence for just a few more minutes. I first met Florence some 20 years ago. I had just arrived here at Temple Beth Shalom. It was no wonder that Florence was one of the first people I got to know, because Florence loved rabbis. Now, it was probably because of her love for her brother, Rabbi Herbert Tarr, Zichrono Livracha, and because of her incredible closeness to him. She knew the challenges of the rabbinate, its rewards and its frustrations, and many of them had been made famous in her brother's remarkable books. Florence admitted to me that she would have actually loved to have been a rabbi, and probably had the option been available early in her life, she in fact might have become one. But 20 years ago when I first met Florence, she was saying Kaddish for her husband Ernie, Zichrono Livracha, and for her brother. They had died just months apart. Florence faithfully said Kaddish, and it was there that our friendship was born and nurtured. By the way, I know 20 years pales in comparison to many of you who are sitting here, some of you who literally knew her from Borough Park, others who have a lifetime relationships. All I have is my 20 years. But when I discovered that Herbert Tarr was her brother. I told her how I had read all his books and how his conversion of Chaplain Cohen had actually had an influence on my own path to the rabbinate. When she learned that I too loved her brother, a bond was born, and we would just get closer and closer over the next 20 years. Florence at that point shared with me an idea that she had been nurturing of doing something to perpetuate his memory. What did I think of starting an adult education program here on the North Shore of Long Island, one that would be in his name and continue his memory? She said it would have to involve all kinds of Jews, conservative, Orthodox, Reform, Reconstructionist, unaffiliated, because, as she insisted, Heshe loved all Jews. I told her I thought it was a wonderful idea, and the Herbert Tarr Adult Education Institute was born. And for the last 20 years, it has been one of the great blessings to Jewish life here on the North Shore of Long Island, and any of us and all of us who have had the privilege to participate in that amazing program that each year brings hundreds of adults together to study and grow and develop Jewishly. Every one of us know that it happened and continues to happen solely due to the vision, the force, the love, and the tireless energy of Florence Meyer. It's no coincidence, and I'm only going to, because the hour is late, there are so many synagogues represented here. There are too many shuls and educational directors and rabbis for me to acknowledge everybody. There were almost 20 shuls that ultimately, and the Jewish Community Center, that became involved in the North Shore, the Herbert Tarr North Shore Adult Education Institute. Again, it was her doing. Florence made sure that rabbis were at the center of this enterprise. She loved her rabbis, and we all loved her. She nurtured us, encouraged us, respected us, yes, placed us on a pedestal, and there is not one of us who could ever say no to Florence Meyer. Florence grew up in Borough Park. She learned how to care for others at the feet of her own mother, who cared for her sisters and brothers. She was one of 13 children. Her mother died young at the age of 39, leaving her and her brother and her father. Florence was an outstanding student. She graduated high school at the age of 16, college at the age of 19, and although she got a master's, it was that city college degree she was most proud of. She met her husband up in the Catskills at the Concord. As Florence told it, he was the only boy sitting by the pool with a book. As he told it, the book was the Merck Pharmaceutical Guide. Ernie had fled to this country from Germany, one step ahead of the Nazis, ending a promising medical career. He came here with $100 in his pocket, and after years of work, ultimately returned to dental school rather than medical school, as the road to becoming a doctor was just too long at that stage of his life. But as a dentist, he had a respected and distinguished career. They moved here to Roslyn in 1954. And as the kids tell it, the day after she moved in, she marched into this synagogue and joined. And for the next 60 years, she would be a loyal and dedicated member, sitting, yes, in that back section. Her beautiful voice could be heard joining in the davening. Florence so loved this shul. And oh, how we loved Florence. It's appropriate that this sanctuary, that she loves so much, is her final stop on her earthly journey. Florence was indefatigable. She brought her tireless energy to everything that she did. She could do more in a day than most of us accomplish in a week. Whether it was taking courses at the Jewish Theological Seminary, being a docent at the Jewish Museum, active on her own sisterhood, working on the Cantor's concert, she did everything and anything. When she came to me and confided that this was going to be the last year that she headed Herbert Tarr, I knew something was terrible. No was just not a part of her vocabulary. I fear I'm not doing justice to the reach of Florence Meyer's love. That she was such a vital part of this family, that she touched so many rabbis. It's all true. But how do I tell you how many people were touched by her love, her enthusiasm, and her reach. In an email that was titled "The Whole Town is Crying," Ellen Walk, one of Florence's proteges who carries on her work for the next generation, Ellen wrote the following to me: "Florence was a force of goodness, eloquence, brilliance, fun, humor, and love. She was ageless. She was an inspiration to so many of us and was my own personal cheerleader during my own struggles with disease. Thank goodness for words. I'm so sad, but when I write about her, I can't help but smile." If you come to Florence's house for Shiva, you'll see a small plaque that Ellen purchased for Florence. It captures a saying that Florence was so fond of, where whenever you would say to Florence, "I love you," she would always reply the same way: "I love you more." And you know she did. Now, I have to confess, I have found the challenge of writing a eulogy for Florence terribly difficult. Frequently, as a rabbi, I worry that I'm saying too much, heaping empty accolades and praise on people who didn't quite measure up to the words that we were offering. But in this case, I kept feeling that my words were insufficient, not up to the challenge, not doing justice to a life that was so exquisitely lived. Maybe it was her beloved brother Heshi, as she affectionately called him. Maybe he was the one who said it best. He dedicated his novel, "So Help Me God," to his sister Florence with the following words: "To Florence Meyer and the Lamed Vavniks wherever they may be hiding." Now, you must permit me to explain this for those of you here who might not know what that means. Rabbi Tar was referring to a wonderful Jewish legend that posits that at any given moment in time, God deems the world worthy of existence due to the presence of 36, in Hebrew, Lamed Vav, 36 tzaddikim, 36 righteous people whose goodness sustains the world. According to this legend, no matter how much evil there is in the world, no matter how many crimes, no matter how much hate, no matter how much is wrong with the world, there are these 36. And because of them, and because of their goodness and sweetness and kindness, God allows the world to continue to spin. Oh, and one other thing about these 36, they're totally and completely anonymous. They go about their work without fanfare or acclaim. They just are. And because they are, the world exists. Now, in his dedication, it was not that Rabbi Tar was outing his sister. For the truth is, he had no way of knowing any more than any of us do who these 36 really are. No, what he was saying was that to him, she was one of those 36. To him, her goodness and her kindness, her love and her care was what made his world possible. I think Florence would have been very happy knowing that this rabbi gave the last word to her favorite rabbi, her brother. And to just add that, Florence, this is what you were for all of us as well. One of the people who just made it all worthwhile. Someone whose love and care and goodness and kindness reminded us all that was right with the world. We like to say that death ends life, but it does not end a relationship. That death cannot destroy the bonds that were formed by a lifetime of living and loving that were as rich and meaningful as those which Florence Meyer created with the ones whom she loved. Today, more than ever, I hope that's true. Her life ends, but her message continues. Her example survives. Her influence endures. O God, let us bring thy children out of the darkness and the shadow of death. We thank thee for the life of Florence Meyer, in whose friendship we were blessed, by whose understanding we were guided, and in whose tenderness we were healed. May the sureness of her nearness to us banish loneliness from our hearts, and the sureness of her nearness to thee, O God, quiet our anxious spirit. Be with those who most poignantly and most painfully feel the pangs of this hour. Sharon and Steve, Jeffrey and Ronnie, Lynn and Gary, Amy and Robert, with her grandchildren, Michael and Alyssa, Alexandra and Zachary and Max, Corey, Emily, Hillary, Harrison, and Ilana, with all the family and friends. Comfort and strengthen their hearts, guide and direct their lives, help them to know that deeper than the pains of frustration and even the mystery of death are your everlasting arms of love and mercy. Grant them steadfastness of purpose, faith in thee, and courage to face life. Give them the wisdom to say with understanding the ancient words of submission and resignation, perhaps the wisest words that could be said at an hour such as this. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. Lord, you have given, and now you have called unto yourself. We praise thee, O God, for the courage to make our broken hearts an altar before which we may acknowledge thy sovereignty and love. May thy name be praised now and forevermore. And let us say, Amen. Would you please rise for the memorial prayer?
El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanefeya Shechiena B'mahalod Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Arakiyam Azehirim Lenishmat Tzipora Bat Yirmiyahu V'Chanadina She'halecha le'olama Began Eden Tehei menuchata Lachein bal rachamim Asyereiha beseter kenofecha Leolamim Utzeror Bitzeror achayim Et nishmata Adonai hu nachelata V'tanuach v'shalom Al mishkava v'nomar Amen.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Tzipora bat Yirmiyahu v'Chanadina, to the soul of Florence Meyer who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and the righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. Your soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is her portion. May she now rest in peace. And let us say, interment will be immediately following in the New Montefiore Cemetery, following which the family will be returning to Florence's home where Shiva will be observed at 5 Westwood Circle in Roslyn. They will be returning there from the cemetery And there will be services there tonight. The shiva will be this afternoon till 5 p.m. and then again from 7 till 9, with services tonight at 7:30 p.m. And then Tuesday shiva will be 3:30 to 5 and 7 to 9, with services at 8 p.m. Wednesday 1 to 5 and 7 to 9, with services at 8 p.m. And Thursday 1 to 5 and 7 to 9, with services at 8 p.m. And it concludes on Friday with 1 to 5 shiva on Friday as well. So services tonight are at 7:30, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m.